Did Jesus enable drunkenness when he turned water into wine? The answer to that is no. Now, we know that it's no because the Lord Jesus Christ was, is, and continues to be perfect. He was the perfect one. He didn't sin ever, he didn't cause other people to sin. He himself was the essence and is the essence of perfection. And so we obviously know the answer to that is no, that Christ did not enable drunkenness when he turned water into wine. But why is that the case? Now, many people argue that wine back in the day was juice. I don't hold to that view by any means. I think wine literally meant wine. Now, as far as the contents within that wine, nowadays I do believe, from what little understanding I have, that it is much stronger today and it's easier to get drunk in today's society than it was back then. And so when Christ turned water into wine, I'm sure there were people who might have been drunk at the party, but was Christ responsible for this? We are responsible for perverting that which Christ gives us, which is to be used according to God's will and with alcohol in moderation. And so when Christ did this, I'm sure other people, obviously had a few drinks or a few glasses of wine, because we know someone said that, you have saved the best wine for last. So obviously there was some drinking beforehand, and these weddings, these ceremonies and whatnot took a long time of celebration and throughout the day. And I'm sure there was water as well, because he turned the water into wine. So there was water to be able to have with the wine. And so, people were meant to be able to do this in moderation. And when Christ did this, again, this was a prolonged ceremony and celebration process. People were supposed to use what Christ did in moderation. But anyone who was drunk based upon what Christ did with the wine, they are responsible for their sins. It's similar to the standpoint of, let's say God blesses us with being a very successful entrepreneur or some job that gets us a lot of money. God gives us that blessing. He provides that for us. But then it's our responsibility to how we choose to use it. Do we use it for selfish motives and spend it all on ourselves? Or do we save and invest, tithe, and give? We are responsible for how we use what God has provided. And likewise, Christ provided wine for this celebration. And again, and brief synopsis, that I know there's a duel within the church. Should Christians drink alcohol? Should they not? And it just comes down to, if people say we should never drink alcohol, then they're being legalistic. If they say drinking alcohol is wrong, they're being legalistic. But we know that We know that that those who say, oh, we can have drinks, and they're constantly getting drunk, and they don't monitor or do so in moderation, they say it doesn't really matter, then obviously that is a perversion of something that can be used for good and enjoyed in moderation. So we obviously know we don't want ever to get drunk or buzzed, but to say that we can't drink at all, that's legalistic. So we need to just understand that. So when Christ provided the wine, it was meant to be used in moderation. It was to be enjoyed and celebrated. There's champagnes at certain weddings, even with people who don't drink, or families that might not drink. Sometimes for the wedding they do provide champagne. It's just us needing to understand that what Christ did not enable drunkenness. He merely provided what was to be meant in moderation for celebration, but those who perverted that and maybe continue to go and continue to drink the wine. And again, the alcohol content level back then, you could drink much more and not get drunk than today's society, where there's all these different specialities and vodka and liquor and just all of the different stuff. Back then, if someone did get drunk based upon Christ turning water into wine, they are fully responsible for getting themselves drunk, because what God provides and what Christ provided then was meant to be used for good and not to be perverted or overindulged with. And another example we could just think of, the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. When Christ multiplied that all, and the fish and the loaves kept coming, some people If they chose, they could have kept eating the bread and fish. They could have gotten so much and then been filled to the standpoint of being too full and then just having a gluttony aspect. Is Christ responsible for that? No, he provided what was needed, but if someone chooses to pervert that, they are responsible for that. So did Christ enable drunkenness when he turned water into wine? The answer to that is no. He did not, because people are responsible for perverting that which Christ and God chooses to make and creates for what is good. So Christ was not responsible for enabling other people to be drunk. People were responsible for getting drunk if they did get drunk when Christ made and turned water into wine.